I have absent with regrets, Councillor Hood. Any declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? Good, okay, and you can say so if you find an item later. Approval of agenda additions or deletions. I'm going to put under 10A, recreation seat. Just find out where we are there.
I have an addition myself.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to need, see the second door that opens? That's all I need closed, then we can see Wade's.
Maybe moving, I'll move chairs at some point,
No, you're good, he'll just,
at this point, it doesn't feel respectable,
Yeah.
respectful to do so.
okay, go ahead, Councillor.
I'd like to add communities in bloom and cleanups, adopt
Okay.
a block.
So we're going to, okay, so I'm going to put 10B, Communities in Bloom. Any other additions?
Move we accept the agenda with the additions, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so I guess I should have said this first. The pre-budget presentation, is council okay if we move that to the end? We've got a lot to deal with today.
Yeah.
And if we get to it, that's good, but we're going to need to do that soon. Staff report, CAO report. Do we have any questions for the CAO on that report? Fire department. Welcome, Chief.
I don't have a written report for you. It's being built. Once we did the changeover at dispatch, some of the things that we had on the main computer had to be switched over, and that's being built now for me. So, but I can answer any questions you have.
About,
Go ahead, Deputy.
so the new fire truck, John's in service, ready to go?
Yep, it's in service. It's already been to a couple of calls and doing very well, actually. The equipment that's on it made a big difference. It was able to deploy it better than.
So it's good?
Yes, it is.
And
yeah.
the other question, John, is Eelbrook got her other piece of equipment?
Yes, they did.
Was there any other expressions of interest from any other fire department?
Or
Or they reached out to us, or you reached out to them?
I reached out to them originally a few years ago and asked you if the committee, council committee, if we could actually do this process, and it was agreed upon for to let me to do it, and this is the first time we've done the process. It worked out very well because the trickle-down effect from that was I learned later on from the chief that we gave the truck to that his old truck went to another department to help that department out. So it wasn't just Eelbrook that got the benefits, it was
So
another
they
one.
played it forward a little bit?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
it
good,
worked out well.
good.
Good stuff. Okay, any more questions for the chief? Good, thank you. Operational services. So, okay, so he is out there working, so I know there's lots to do. Any questions for Chad, we can find him. Transit report, were there any questions on that? We're good. Planning department, Caroline. Any questions for planning? This is relatively easy so far. It's very good. Asset management infrastructure renewal for our engineer. Do we have any questions on that one? Finance, Jerry?
Just a quick comment on the budget process. Jeff and Charles and I plan to meet early next week to try to finalize the staff, I guess, suggestions or proposals for projects next year with the intent to hopefully have a capital budget meeting with council and get something approved before anybody takes vacations in the next few weeks. So we'll at least get that part done.
Good. Any questions for our finance director? Councillor McLeod, did you have something?
I was just going to ask Charles how he's making out with the parking challenge on in back of the town hall building.
It's a good point. Thank you, Councillor Jim. So I had a discussion with CBCL just after I had talked to your worship and a few of the councilors, and I'd given them some input, so I've itemized that into three main points. And in the, if you have my report in front of you, on the second table, the first line item.
Jim, you may have just received it printed out. It didn't, yeah, that's it. So, sorry, Charles, go ahead. The
Thank you.
second,
Thank you, your worship. So the second table, capital infrastructure, and then the first item, and I'll just sort of read these out and answer any questions that you guys have. But I gave the following input to CBCL. So keep the entire design within the existing footprint, so they know the extremities of the existing structure. Everything that's going to be done is within that existing footprint. Proceed with the two-tier option like we discussed before, but we want to resolve both of those tiers with a connecting ramp, and the idea was that we gain parking stalls with the new geometry on that side adjacent to Glebe Street. So you could tinker around with it, and the way that you arrange the ramp, you could move some of those spots out of the way, and so you probably net with an increase of maybe 1 or 2 stalls total, but then you might be able to include the ramp within that geometry without pushing out into the park. So they're looking into that. I think they can do it just from conversations that we had. So in the the first week of March, they'll be giving us another concept design to take a look at. So everybody will be able to see if we like it or not.
good. Good. Okay, any more questions for Charles?
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe not so much
Or
to
to
Charles,
Jerry?
but to Jeff.
Jeff?
Were we going to talk with the Dr. Moses and the library about parking in behind the new medical building there? Is there a agreement there? Or
Yeah, so we have an agreement. We've offered them the same agreement that we offer other businesses in the downtown who have an abundance of parking. So Sunny does patrol their lot. We do sell parking passes. The only exception is in their lot that is a bit different is it's shared with the library. And so what the library has done is they've directed their staff to park back in the back lot, and there's
that's where they got those two
the Jersey barriers with the signage there.
Yeah.
There are a couple of spots reserved for tenants of Dr. Moses, but the rest is regulated through our parking enforcement. So we have a good arrangement there, and there's also potential in discussion with the library and Dr. Moses. There is potential that the lot could be expanded further, creating dozens of extra parking spaces if the need arises either on their end or if we are interested in pursuing that down the road.
Good, thank you.
Certainly. Go
Just
ahead,
kind of
Councillor.
as an attendant to that, the lines there, of course, it's been an area that's been kind of not neglected, but not really used very much up until. The lines for parking probably will need to be refixed. Is there any plan for that as well?
I haven't been in the lot myself for a while, but and I'll check and see if that's on Chad's radar. But we do line painting in the summer, obviously, and we do some every year. So if it needs some attention, we can do that.
Go ahead, Councillor McLeod.
Just to follow and make sure, Charles's report will be on the computer, we'll see it? Okay, thank you. I hate paper.
All right, are we good? Yarmouth Recreation, Frank, and Frank's here. So I have a question. I'm just in the grant application to Nova Scotia Recreation Facility Development, $100,000 that we can receive a third funding, like as in we get 33,000 and we fill in the rest? I don't understand how that one works.
Yep,
Like
so
the-
we're planning to do a renovation at the Lake Milo Boat Club. washrooms, offices, and storage. And we're anticipating the project is going to be about $100,000, of which the province could fund up to a third of that.
That's,
And then we're hoping that the town would come in with a third and the municipality would come in with a third.
okay, all right. I have a second question about that. What about the accessibility piece at that building?
So we have an accessibility audit of the Milo Boat Club and lots of things identified.
Yeah.
And of course, we are going to follow that as much as possible.
Okay.
I guess it's going to be a longer-term project to address all of the needs because we have parking issues, we have entrance to and from water facilities. We have a beautiful banquet hall upstairs that is not accessible to people.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So it's going to be a number of years tackling a lot of those issues, and we're hoping that there will be funding coming for accessibility projects and that Milo is high on our radar. We have been told, I haven't seen anything in writing, but we have been told that if we do access provincial recreation funding, that accessibility funding can be stackable. So if we are doing an accessible project and get funding from one partner, that the accessibility funds will not limit.
Yeah, rightfully so, I think. They're two separate,
Exactly.
two separate
It's-
things.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful hall, right on the,
Yeah, so
can't get up there.
the plans for upstairs, we've got a hardwood floor up there that we can't refinish anymore, so we have to look at replacing the floor there, some upgrades to the kitchen, so lots to do there, and we're just going to stretch it out over some time.
Thank you, Frank. And then the volunteer week, it says we're still inviting people to, but
Yes. Good
boy,
news.
we got some volunteers this time.
Yes, so I just wanted to let council know that if they are talking to community organizations, I know I spoke with Councillor Barry about the volunteer from the Yarmouth High School. It is not too late to nominate local volunteers for our local celebration on April the 9th, right here in council chambers. But we did have to put a deadline on for the provincial volunteer representative, someone from the town and municipality that represents us at provincial award ceremonies. And our recreation committee did their voting, and the town of Yarmouth's volunteer representative is 13-year-old Cohen Kenny. And Cohen is a volunteer with MC Media Team at the Mariner Center. When I spoke with his dad, Sean Kenny, first thing Sean said, well, geez, Cohen doesn't volunteer a whole lot, or he just
wow.
started volunteering with the MC Media Team and his uncle JR. And I said, I bet if you sit and think about it, all the things that he has done in the community, so of course, school activities, various community activities that his mom and dad are involved in, and all of a sudden we started compiling a list. So I spoke with Cohen yesterday, and he was over the moon happy that he was selected, and I put a big challenge on him, just similar when we've had youth volunteer representatives in the past, that they have a whole lifetime of volunteering ahead of them. So he was up for the challenge. And I should mention that the District of Yarmouth's volunteer representative, everyone around this table knows, Jeff Little was selected for the district. So we have two great volunteer
Well
reps
done. Well
for April 1st provincial ceremonies.
Yeah. Well done. That was, yeah.
As you know, I work at the Mariner Center announcing at the hockey games, and I started seeing Cohen come by a lot with his work with MC Media. Of course, we're all kind of interconnected as far as it goes. But Cohen is constantly in my sound booth asking me if I need anything. And he is there constantly. He's always there. He's always happy and excited to help. He wants to help, and I'm really excited that he was named the volunteer this year for the town. It's really a wonderful thing.
His dad shared a story with me, and I'll be quick. He just said when he first started volunteering with the MC team, it's just like Wade said, he was so curious about how everything worked, and he got on one of the switching machines where he's switching cameras, and next thing you know, he's on the mic in someone's ear on a camera, and he's saying, "Camera 3, focus! Camera 3, focus!" So he picked it up just like that.
Oh, my gosh. I love it. And you know, I started, I did post last night on his mom Melanie's post, and then the part I erased was, that volunteerism is generational. Yeah. But it's true. The apple doesn't fall far from, on both sides of his family. And I think everybody knows Winnie and everything she did. And it's funny, Frank, that what his dad responded with would be exactly what his Grammy and his mom and his whole family would have said. Well, we don't do much, right? Because they just do it as a matter of who they are. That's, yeah, I cried when I saw that one.
Yeah, when Cohen's grandmother, Winnie Surratt, was the town's volunteer representative, we had a terrific day and a half traveling around, and what I think of, and this was what I think of Winnie was, when we were on our way home, we had to stop at Costco. So when we went to Costco, I'm not a Costco member, but Winnie was stocking up, especially on the jelly beans, right? She always had jelly beans on her desk at CIBC, and she was treating me like her son. She was like, "Do you want some candies? Do you need anything here?" And anyway,
Yeah.
so it
That's
was.
Winnie.
That was Winnie.
I was her flower girl. Okay. Yeah, that many years ago. I was smaller than Cohen. Thank you, Frank. Okay. Economic development, Natalie.
You can tell Frank is here, it's very high.
Any questions for Natalie? You sent me an email this morning. I don't know if it's best served here, but the downtown music piece.
Right.
It's I only ever get one email from, oh, do we need to discuss that? Do we need to talk about the future of that piece? I don't, we can put it to another meeting, but Natalie put it on my radar this morning. I did get an email as well. Yeah. So maybe we can talk about it another time. Yeah, somebody's, you're first, go ahead, and then Jeff.
Don't get me started, I guess is the we do need to discuss it.
We do.
It needs to be discussed, it needs to be grabbed with both hands.
Okay. Thank you, well put. CAO?
Yeah, okay, we can put that on next month's agenda, and if anybody wants to, discuss and bring forward ideas, I guess in the interim, we can start to formulate some ideas. There is a very brief downtown music policy. It's on our website. It really is very brief, but maybe a good starting point.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else for Natalie? Did you want to share anything, Natalie? You're good?
No, I have a request for decision later on the
Okay.
agenda.
Good.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, business, local improvement bylaw repeal and replace. CAO.
Thank you, Worship. This is just a heads up at this point, just a early warning that staff and Morris Lloyd have been working on updating our local improvement bylaw. It is just about ready to bring forward for your consideration, so you may expect to see that at the March 14th Town Council meeting for first reading. We'll try and circulate it well ahead so that you have a chance to review it, and if you have questions then on the first reading, we can try and address them. But that's just a heads up.
Good. Okay. Grants presentation meeting. Go ahead.
So, Your Worship, Lindsay issued another agenda for today that includes all of the grant applications we've received from community groups for funding next fiscal year. And so we discussed early on in the process this year that council would review the applications and decide which groups you wanted to potentially have come make presentations. Now, I'll remind you, last year we didn't have presentations from any groups. In some years prior, we've had presentations from every group. This year, your preference, your stated preference, at least at the outset, was to decide which ones you want to hear from for the purpose of, I guess, gaining more information than is available. So I'll stop talking and.
No, I think maybe, do we have a tangible list? Sorry, I know we received it, but it's.
So it is online. It is, oh, you don't, right.
We're just, I don't think.
So you don't have it in front
the
of you.
deputy has it in front of him either.
Okay, so we do have a list. It is online. Let me just bring it up here so I can see it. That won't help you much, but perhaps a little bit. So there are, looks like about 40 or so applications. Many that we hear from. I'll tell you what, how about we do this? Let's kick this item to later in the agenda. We'll print out the list.
That would be great.
And then you can make a decision.
Okay, so I'm going to put it down here under additions just to grants, and then we can get copies and go through it. Thank you. Greatly appreciated. Okay, food bank expansion. CAO.
Your worship, so we have to go back a few months. The council had asked for a kind of a diagram or a pictorial representation of what it was the food bank had in its mind in terms of expansion. So go back a little further, council had a discussion and passed a motion to look in the feasibility of erecting a fence at the back of the property where the food bank is located to create a screen for the adjacent neighbor. The food bank became aware of that because it was a public decision and approached me and ultimately council about the possibility that they were considering the need for an expansion, and maybe expanding the building would facilitate both needs, that you would create the screening with the additional building and maybe save the cost of the fence. So council asked for a representation of what they were thinking in terms of a building expansion. That came up last month, and I failed to provide you with the diagram. This time, I believe the diagram is attached. So, and I point out that Mr. Newell, Reverend Newell, is present, and so if you have any questions about the diagram, any of the diagrams or the food bank's plans, I think we could probably answer those today. I will also point out, at our last meeting, we did talk about the fact that there is an easement, a right-of-way that the property owner next to us owns across the east end of the property. It's a 25-foot right-of-way, and I did discuss that right-of-way with him because it became obvious to me, looking at the diagrams, that it wasn't going to work out so well because the building expansion seemed to encroach on that area. So the property owner, in conversation with me, had indicated he was reluctant, unwilling to move the easement or change the easement. I've relayed that information on to Reverend Newell, and my understanding is he's not had an opportunity yet to discuss that directly with the property owner. So I'll stop talking, and if you have any questions, happy to answer.
I just have a couple of basic questions. How much is this expansion going to cost, and who's paying for it? Is it us?
Yep. Okay, so is council okay with Reverend Newell speaking? Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Not exactly sure of the cost, but it will not cost you people anything. We have funding. We were blessed with some sizable gifts this past year, and that will handle that. Our biggest concern right now is the easement. So I'll, yeah.
If it has to be adjusted for the easement, how big a sacrifice is that? How much of it?
Well, we first thought the easement was 10 foot, and then when we checked it, we found it was more, so it's gonna sizably, you know, we'll have to go back to the drawing boards on the easement, on the direction of the building. I don't know whether it's feasible to go along the east side back toward Herbert Street further. That would help. Right now, one of the reasons we are looking at this is we have a problem. Too much support. Which is a good problem to have. But right now, we have stuff stored on 2 locations off-site because we don't have room for it all, you know, in our building. We're getting stuff from Feed Nova Scotia that's, well, in January, we got 3 pallets of cookies and a pallet and a half of crackers, which are, you know, I mean, yeah, it's a nice treat, but there's not a whole lot of food value. But we are getting more stuff with good food value from some of the stores in the area. And for example, meats and things, yogurts, this type of thing that it's gone past the best before date, but that's not an expiry date. Best before deals with freshness, of course expiry deals with safety. So we are trying to come up with a way that we can accommodate it on site because it's much more convenient, especially on the days like the first 2 weeks when we have upwards of 200 clients on 2 weeks. Where this past month we had 325 clients, which would put us over close to 800, representing 800 people. We use a formula of 2.5 per visit, you know, per person. We have some very large families that come. So, you know, that's as much as we hate to admit it, that's 10% of our population of the community in the town. I mean, most of our people are out from town. We have some from outside. So if you took off a couple of thousand for the people outside, you're still looking at 6,000 people. So I mean, we've got to do something. But that's.
I'd love to know how many of those folks take advantage of the 100 meals. A good, solid, hot meal every single day.
I hear you.
Every single day.
I hear you, dear. But you know, it's an ongoing problem, and we're, you know, and every week we get new people.
Yeah.
Every week we have new clients coming.
Did-
I'm so sorry that you're busy.
Yeah, well, I've been involved with this from the beginning. I chaired the committee that set it up back when Marge McEachran was mayor. That's how long I, you know, and we were naive enough when we started to think, you know, 4 or 5 years we'd be out of business. 32 years later, we're still going.
Yeah, there's various reasons.
Are there issues, and I'm sorry to bring this up because it's not exactly related to it, but if it does relate to it as far as once you get an expansion about ability, I know Tuesdays it's a very busy place there.
Yes.
Is there any issues when it comes to getting people in there? I know that they stand outside in the cold. I've heard that.
Well,
We got an answer for that.
we open
I'd
at
like
one. We open at 1 o'clock.
Right.
We have people who show up at 9:30.
Which is ridiculous.
Absolutely. They get the same regardless. You know, we have never, in our 32 years? In our 32, we have never run out of food, knock on wood. But, you know, so, I mean, yeah, there may be some items that we're short of, you know, at the end, but by and large, everyone gets treated the same. And so, most days it's not a big problem, you know. We have a lineup when we start, we open, we can get roughly 20 to 25 people inside at once.
Right.
So, you know, you can roll that through pretty steadily in 2.5 hours. And I mean, if you're in line at 3:30 when we're technically closed, you still get served.
Of course.
We're there to 4:30, some days 5 o'clock,
Right.
serving people. So, you know, but I mean, if you went to the bank at 7 o'clock in the morning,
Exactly.
and they opened at 9:30, guess what?
You're going to be cold.
You got it.
Yeah,
It's
and
that simple.
It's
Simple as
the
that.
same with the 100 meals, right? There's always
Absolute-
people a
absolute,
couple
you know, I
hours
mean-
ahead, and that's, yeah.
But that's
You
not only,
can't fix
that's
that.
not only here. I've been in Halifax.
Yeah, that's not,
You know,
that's
like
normal.
with Hope Cottage.
Yeah.
And they start lining up an hour and a half before the doors open
yeah,
on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are just, you know, it's a social time for them. I mean, yeah, they get cold, I'm sorry, but, you know,
yeah, but you're, yeah.
there's a limited amount to what we, you know, what we can do to.
Of course.
To alleviate that.
Excellent. Thank you.
You need to go down to the South School, all your issues be gone.
Yeah, it's gonna, Bill?
Yes, sir.
The first question is Wade answered. The second one is with the easement. If you're gonna do it, maybe have we ever really thought outside the box? Because I know when you first came that I didn't know if the old Ben's Bread place was gonna be a stopgap or a permanent place. And can you tell me how much you spent on renovations there already?
$55,000.
5.5?
5.5.
55,000.
5,500.
Do 55,000, right? 55,000.
We put in,
5,000.
No, 55,000.
with $55,000 for the first renovations. We put in new doors, new windows. We rewired the place.
Did something with the dock too, didn't you?
Pardon?
Did you do something with the loading dock too?
No, the loading, well, just a small adjustment
Okay.
there. That wasn't that bad, but $55,000.
Do you think with this expansion, Bill?
We had
this-
to do fireproof paint
Yeah.
on the inside.
Do you
I
think-
mean, we're, you know, other than space, we're light years ahead of where we were.
How
like-
much, do you know how much the new addition's gonna be, or the new part if
It's
it
going
comes?
to be that or more.
Yeah, we need
What
to-
about,
we need to
Bill,
fix this.
if we think way outside the box, and this Wade touched on it, with people standing outside, how about if we think way outside the box? And do that as a stopgap measure and maybe look at something like South Centennial School? Could that be a possibility? Because I think you could
That's
use,
gonna
I think you
create-
could use the school for, you'd have all the room, you'd have the problem that Wade talked about, and in addition to that, I think if we talk to government agencies, there could be an opportunity to do, somebody brought up one time about food preparation for families, some of the other support networks down in that building. I'm just trying to think outside the box a little bit, but, because that building does cost us money every year to maintain. We've had no really interest, nobody's had a real interest in it, have they, Jeff? Not really, right? Not a substantial one. Is that a possibility, Bill, or no? I know it's going to be a lot of work to maintain that one, and that's,
The maintaining is going to be, you know,
yeah,
I mean, the heating costs are going to be astronomical.
yeah.
I mean, right now, we have a heat pump not more than adequately,
That's the whole building?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, you know, the other thing, I mean, we got criticized when we moved where we did, that we were out of the way from where our clientele comes.
That's not
But
your
that would be as bad, if not worse. Because we, you know, again, the stereotype is that our clientele comes from the south end. Well, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
they come from
That's
all
not
over
true.
now,
Our
right?
clientele
not
comes
true.
all over this community.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come from the north end.
Yeah,
So, you know, that's going to be, you know, so, I mean, we got criticized because we, you know, we were we went further away, but we went closer to the sun. But we're going to be, you know, I would say South End would, school, no deference to being in the South End, but would be,
Don't worry about being criticized. I get that every day. It's about making
listen,
the right
dear,
decisions,
you get out of
What's
bed in
the
the
right
morning.
thing?
I've been at this, you know, in the people business for 50 years, and I've,
Yeah, and you're still at it.
yeah, and there's no matter what you do, someone's going to criticize
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. So it's about
I think
making
the
the right
most, I
decisions.
think the most
Yeah.
important part now is talking about the easement, I guess, right? And we got to find out what the adjacent landowners say. And also, Bill, out of curiosity, I would like to see with the heat pumps and some of that new stuff and the green technology, that would be a great one to put. We were the only municipality in Nova Scotia to get remember we got one of the projects for the Public Works?
Yes, for the Public Works building.
For the Public Works building.
Solar panels.
If you could do that, if you could do a green retrofit at South Centennial School, I'm just knocking that around a little bit, that's all. And I know, Bill, the location's a problem, and wouldn't make any difference where you put it, the
Oh,
location.
no, it's going to be a
It's
problem
gonna be a
for some
problem,
people,
right?
regardless, Phil,
I'm
yeah.
just thinking about
You're right.
that.
You're absolutely right.
So what's it, Jeff? You're the CAO, from what I hear? Who's that sound like? What about the easement, or Caroline, what about the easement situation? That's the only thing I have a concern with.
CAO?
So the easement is a legal encumbrance on the property. And as I say, I had an initial discussion with the holder of that easement, and there was not interest in surrendering that. So, you know, we're not in a position where we can compel that, or you know, I guess there are ways to compel it, but that's, you know, a different situation. So what I mentioned to Reverend Newell is perhaps that he should initiate, if he wants to pursue that, initiate a conversation. We don't want to, I don't think we want to, at least at this point, get into any kind of a battle over taking away people's rights.
Bill, Reverend Newell, Bill mentioned.
Put your light so I can.
Bill, how's it work? Bill mentioned on the other side, so if you couldn't do something on the easement side, if you did something on the other side, how is that deeded or titled from, I think that's maybe the Cleric High estate, I think? Like, is there a problem doing that?
So on the west side of the building is actually, if memory serves, there's a street right-of-way there that goes from Herbert Street
to Huntington.
over to Huntington, yeah.
That's not the east. So where are we talking about
the
the
west.
easement then?
East side is on the side by the Capri.
The easement
The east
is,
side's on the side by the Capri.
right,
Yeah.
Right, okay, yeah.
sorry,
Is that where
Yeah.
where's the roadway? Is that supposed to be the roadway was in behind but
the road.
that'll go to the backstop,
The
right?
roadway is on, yeah, it goes across over to Huntington,
Yeah.
between the backstop and our western
Okay.
property line.
But what about on the other side? Is there a problem with that? I know at the golf course, because of the way it's deeded, that there's some constraints
I
on the
don't,
property.
I'd have to look into whether the street right-of-way was part of the deed or the grant or the gift from Cleric High. I'm not
Yeah.
sure the extent of that. That would take a
Okay.
little bit of research.
Okay.
Where it is now.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about is on the west side of the building, it appears to be all park. And back, one of the first,
Up here, you mean?
in Milton, yes.
In Milton,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that appears to be all park, but my memory tells me, and I could be wrong, but I believe there's a street right-of-way between the building and the park. And
Yeah.
the question is whether the street right-of-way was part of the land gift from Cleric High, because if it is, there were restrictive covenants with that grant or gift of land. So a little bit of research should be
So we got a
required.
little more research.
If you want to look at that side of the building, it will require a bit of research.
Okay.
And I don't know if, I mean, just to throw it out there, you know, that's where your loading dock is, so you'd be into
Yeah.
some additional work there.
It's much easier to build on the east side because on the west side, you know, you're up off the ground, you know, so the cost of putting in a pad and whatnot would be quite astronomical, I would think.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I'm not, I'm just being honest, I'm not convinced at all. I'm sitting here thinking, just don't add on. Let's put it in the South School or somewhere. I get what you're saying about location, but let's be honest, it doesn't matter where it's located, somebody's gonna be upset. And it's there. And maybe it's time that we sit down and figure out, I mean, to me, there's the ability to turn the South School into housing, you know, all those pieces that adds to the tax base, and that's great. But it's also a perfect place for a great social center, if that makes sense. So the food bank and some of the organizations that need space, but we don't want to be landlords either.
Doug Jones 2 days ago, and they're looking for some space for Ignite Lab.
Yeah, and that's not it though. I asked that question.
But they said
I'm
the way
sorry.
it's going, we might need another spot.
Jim, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. You guys are having a good conversation. I'm very okay with that. It's nice to hear Phil thinking outside the box. The current design, could we, instead of having it perpendicular, could it run parallel to the existing building?
That's what I'll have to look at, Jim.
And the other question, I noticed in the last paragraph of Jeff's letter that you don't want, you want windows on the outside facing Huntington Street. Maybe we could have a skylight or two.
We could.
Yeah, just to
Thinking outside the box again, that would,
make it.
It's inside the box, but.
is it?
Inside the box, but just.
No, but I also like the idea of the South Centennial School, because I know, Pam, with your mayor's task force, that you're now looking at a shelter a night for 100 nights.
We're doing that, we are.
Anyway, I just say that
Yes.
out loud.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
We have churches that are interested, yeah. Okay,
My
so,
famous saying all the time, Jeff, what's the next step? We have to find out about the Clarikai thing and about the easement, and I still like the South Centennial one just because.
yeah, that's where I am. I'm not with a building
That's gonna
onto
be a
this
long
building
term.
and just causing more go-aheads, whoever. That would be you, CAO. Wade, did you want to talk first? Do you have? It's up to you.
Oh, go ahead, Wade.
You want Wade to?
Yep.
I just want to say that the idea of South Centennial School has been rattling around, and in my head at least, maybe because of you, probably is. Maybe because of you. So at any rate, and no offense, I don't want to steal, steal the course of this or anything, but I do think that a location somewhere else where you have the room to spread that can be used with other social initiatives as well. Perhaps that would be the issue. If you're worried about heating, maybe we can figure out a way in which, there's more than one area there that's being taken care of. But moving it a little bit away from a busy section of town, and I understand again, and absolutely, I agree 100%. It doesn't have to be as busy as it is. They're coming very early, but that could be quite a complex, and my mind is starting to churn with that thought. So perhaps we could investigate that parallel to what else is happening. Just to say, I don't know how to do that, and I don't want to steal, I don't want to, hijack this from the Reverend's wishes, but there's a real potential here, I think.
It's respectfully, because we all love the Reverend, but it's what's best for the community, not anybody's wishes, right? That's how we have to make decisions.
Fair enough?
Can you,
Am I?
yeah,
Whatever.
you're on, go ahead, as long as you can get it back to you.
Okay, let's see if we can see me.
Sorry.
Oh, there's the chair. There's me. Okay, so South School, just to speak to that for a minute. So and I think I'm right in saying every time we've been approached by anybody with regard to South School, it has been a social support kind of initiative or organization. And it is a significant building in terms of size, and I think it's an opportune building in terms of location and condition. You know, we did have an organization in there for close to a year, and they made good use of it, but it sits idle, and we are incurring the cost of keeping it heated and safe. We had planned to begin an engagement in the community down there to talk about broader issues than just the school, because there are other opportunities in the neighborhood that we think you know, could be part of a broader discussion. But that, for various reasons, in terms of staff, we haven't been able to move that forward. You know, and those are good reasons. But in the meantime, the building sits empty. So, if it's council's desire, you know, staff would be happy to work with you on the building alone. You know, and maybe engage with some organizations in the community that are looking for space to talk about what, you know, get our pencils out with a floor plan and just talk about possibilities. You know, what could happen there that would be good for the community. And then, you know, if there's enough interest and there's enough ideas and enthusiasm, then maybe take it to the next step. You know, I think people would come to the table pretty quickly if they knew there was the opportunity that school represents. It will require some work, but that's quite all right. You know, the food bank could be in that conversation, for sure. I guess from the staff perspective, what I'd like to know is what do you want us to do? You know, if you want the food bank to redesign for the existing location and respecting the right-of-way, then they have some work to do. But realize there's a significant cost to going forward, and perhaps some cost to even do that design. So, you know, if that is your intention, if that's what you want to do, then I'd say ask them to do the work. But if you really want to accommodate them somewhere else, that's a different conversation, and maybe a broader conversation with broader community participation if you're talking about South School. So we'll engage in that if that's your wish. And as I say, every time somebody's approached us about the school, it's been about some sort of social organization that's trying to do a good thing in the community. And individually, it's too big a bite for any of them, but maybe collectively maybe it's just a great opportunity.
Good, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'd like, based on what Jeff has just said in the discussion around the table, I'd like to direct staff to work with Reverend Bill Newell in redesigning the extension with no windows facing Huntington Street, no more windows facing Huntington Street. And then from a conversational point of view, I would support discussion in the future, but initially to accommodate the needs, the growing needs that we're all concerned about of that business. So that's my motion, Your Worship. To ask Jeff and his staff to work with Bill Newell in redesigning the addition so that it doesn't affect the easement, if that's possible.
Looks like you don't have a seconder.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Okay, so,
They have to go back and talk about the easement, I think, is going to affect a lot of the decision. And I still, Bill, would you rule out even looking at social technical school?
No, you've got the money, honey, we got the time.
Well, we have, I don't know if we got the money, but we have government agencies that would probably be
Yeah.
quite interested in the social enterprise aspect of this, I think. And I think, for what it costs us to run it for a year, to heat and do the building, I don't think I have my light on, sorry, Wade.
okay,
Give me a That's, so what, if everything fell perfectly into place, Bill, like the dominoes fell perfectly, with the easement situation all taken care of and the Clare Kai component with the deed and the covenants and all the other stuff, what are we looking to start? Now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Put it on, Wade. Go ahead, Counselor.
All right? If that is the case, and with all due respect to you, and I love the work of the food bank, and I think the town supports it. I think the people of the town support the food bank, which is your,
Obviously they do.
Yes.
Because of the support that we get.
Yes.
I believe, for the good of the town, that a social center is the way to go. So I would like to make a motion to direct staff to investigate turning South Centennial School into the location for the food bank and whatever spaces that need to be filled by other social programs. And to work with Reverend Newell with the needs that they require, and to give us a look at what that may look like.
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay,
And are you going to talk on that again later?
Nope, I'm good.
good.
And come to find out after the investigation and looking at some of the social aspects, other social groups going in there, if the cost is prohibitive, then they have to look at the easement. Like I think, Jeff, did you say parallel at one time? I think they might have to do the parallel things. And I think the other one with the easement's not going to cost any money, but the other one will. And there is government levers that Jeff always says that we can access or try to get to facilitate or help with the moving of any social enterprise or the food bank into that location. So I'd second the motion, but
Okay,
see, they're still going to have to do some homework on both parts.
okay. Any more
Am
discussion?
I wrong on that, Jeff, or no? Okay.
Go ahead. Jim, did you want to speak?
I don't mind thinking outside the box and all that sort of thing, but that the need for more space for the current food bank is immediate. I'm uncomfortable with the exploration, which is going to put time. It'd be a long time before we actually come up with a deal and an arrangement. I'm okay with the proposed expansion that Bill is presenting to us, and Jeff and his staff are busy. When you look at the agenda today, it's huge what they're doing on behalf of the citizens of our town. So with respect, I'm going to vote against the motion, Your Worship.
Good. Okay, are we ready for the question? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I probably would like to talk about looking at the diagram and turning it sideways, I guess, for the easement. Is that still going to be on the table for the Reverend? Are you still going to be looking at? Because I see the easement as the biggest crutch of setting back this diagram that I'm looking at.
Yep.
And look, so Jim and I were talking about whether he's moving it sideways or whether he's somehow going to reconfigure. But in all that reconfiguration means more money for a diagram, right? Because
Well, I think at least we can, talk, I can talk to Mr. Rodney about the easement, and again, that failing, then I can talk to the contractor that we've been dealing with, as to how the cost would be affected by switching it parallel.
The other concern outside the box, I guess, would be we're already paying for heating services for the building. So I'm saying whoever goes in there, I'm assuming that we would at least, if it's at least part of our building, that we would maybe consider, because we're going to pay those dollars for the rest of our life anyway. I hate to say it. So even half of what we pay out now would be a benefit to the town rather than what we're paying already.
Yeah.
So both ideas are great. I think getting somebody to look at a big social building is always an advantage to the town, no matter where you go. If you can have several groups that have nowhere to go, and you're putting into one straight facility, people will go where you feed them. You know what I mean? So that I don't think that's a concern. So wherever you have a building, they're gonna come regardless.
You know, one thing, I haven't been down to totally examine the South School, but one of the things we get thrown at us is, you know, where our clients park and the way they park. You know, if you've got several groups in that building, it seems to me, if memory serves me right, when it was a school, parking was a problem for the staff. So I don't know. I mean, that's just something that popped into my mind. I'm not trying to, but it's just something we've got to look at.
Yeah, we've got to, yeah, go ahead, CAO.
So I was just, one of the things about the school is it actually sits on a fairly large parcel of land. The parking issue that they used to have when it was a school was partly based on the fact that all the land was playground, right?
Yes, yep.
And had other use. And not that you want to displace all of that, because some of that play infrastructure still is used in the community. But I'm sure there's room there to look at the property a little more creatively.
Yeah.
Where do you do the off-site storage now, Bill? You said you had 2 places.
Pardon?
You have 2 places you do off, where
Yeah.
are they?
Basement of the Lions Hall, they give us a room,
Okay.
and I'm, how should I say this?
Somewhere else?
Treading on my family relationships. Taking advantage of my family relationships to get freezer space.
On the Newell side?
True.
Okay, I got you. I think I can figure that one out. So nothing stops, Your Worship. I'll support the motion, but nothing stops Reverend Bill to still do the parallel track thing. And if,
To keep looking at, to keep
oh, yeah,
looking
yeah,
into it.
yeah, because there's
that's
still that
fine.
easement question in the one about the, Councilor Berry said it, and Cleveland about
Yeah,
the
I'm just-
position of the building. So
Yeah.
it doesn't stop.
You can keep looking at that.
Yeah.
The motion is for staff to look into the South Centennial School, right?
And Bill, you got no problem going down to have a look at the
Oh, no,
school?
no.
Yeah, go for a drive, look at the, like you said, there's quite a, like you said, Jeff, I spent a lot of time driving up and down that back lane. I know that area fairly well. And there is a lot of room in behind, and a lot of it was for playground, parkland in behind there with the,
And
yeah.
I'll-
And it's still being used, too.
Yeah.
It's still being used, the basketball court, but that's farther up on top of the hill. It's still being used quite a bit, yeah.
There's room there.
Yeah, just go down and have a look.
It's not like he has again, I'm sorry to
He,
speak.
Put your light on there, Wade, so we can hear you.
I'm sorry to speak as if he's not in the room, but it's not like you have a ton of parking where you are right now. And so
Well, but we do access the park at the provincial building.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
but
But
It can be done.
But, you know, I get criticized again because people park on side the street, and I keep telling people who criticize me that that's an RCMP issue, not.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
not,
you know
it's not
what?
for you.
Not my
So-
issue. That, if you've got a problem,
Yeah.
call them and they'll
Yeah.
let them look at it.
yeah.
So.
I'm not going to police the streets.
No, you're not. And to that point, maybe we need to.
Yeah.
So if it goes to the South Centennial School, this is where parking is. If you're
Yeah.
parked not there, then you're either going to get a ticket or
Yeah.
you're, sorry, but,
Yeah.
but somebody just needs to continually remind,
Yep.
this is where,
Yep.
this is where the
I
parking is.
mean, we have to
There's-
get after people, the only parking enforcement we do is some people will park blocking off the access to the,
Yeah.
to the loading dock
Yeah.
when the
Yeah.
truck comes from Halifax,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you've got to get out of the way so we can,
But you
Yeah.
guys put
And-
stuff in there all the time, too.
All the
Not
time.
Not at nighttime, but.
But people
No.
will continue to do that.
Oh,
Until
absolutely.
someone polices them.
You ever
Absolutely.
have a problem, Bill, when they have a large funeral at Sweeney's? with
Yes.
people blocking off the access to the loading dock?
yes. Although so far we haven't run into that on a Tuesday.
Okay.
Exactly.
But they do come up, park on both sides of the road for funerals too, so.
Yeah.
It's not just us.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So, so we'll vote on them. I'm going to support this motion. I wouldn't have supported the other one, and I still won't. in the future, but, ready? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Okay, thank you. Good. Thanks, Reverend.
You still got some work to do, Bill.
Oh.
And you're gonna go for a drive with Jeff or
Yeah.
with Charles or Chad or? who's gonna
Somebody.
go for a
We'll
drive?
run you down to the
I
South
know-
School.
I know-
Jeff will look after that.
I'm familiar with how to get to South School, so.
Yeah.
Well, we have over the years taken, like for stuff down there, when we got a ton of bananas in, we used to take, and we're at the end of the, our time, we used to take them to the schools for the breakfast program, so, you know.
All right, request for decision, stormwater management handbook.
Okay, so in our municipal planning strategy, council's given us a vision for how new housing projects should be laid out in order to reduce stormwater runoff to adjacent properties. For residential infilling, we require that site grading be done to limit water runoff to adjacent properties to current pre-construction levels. In the southeast quadrant, we're allowing site plan approval, but as part of that process, they have to integrate low-impact development measures. And finally, we also have a flood zone around Broadbrook that we look at. So we have these kind of visionary items where council has stated that it's a priority to consider how stormwater runoff is managed when we're doing new developments. However, at this point in time, it's kind of more visionary. So we sit down and talk with developers, but there's nothing tangible that we can require of them. So at this point, I would like to kind of build on these policies a little bit further. I'd like to work with Charles and come up with, if we're gonna do it, I'd like to do it well. I'd like to relook at our policies and see if we can come up with some tangible numbers of goals that we would like developers to reach. I'd like to come up with a developer handbook that we can distribute that's for the Yarmouth context, our area, looking at specific measures such as rain gardens and depending on their area, how much stormwater they would mitigate, and how much that would cost and what plants would make sense in our climate. And then, you know, if we're gonna do all this, then there's might be opportunity for council to lead by example and also look at how we could incorporate some low-impact development measures into our public works department projects as well. So I talked to Chad about that, and that's something that he'd be open to working with me on. So this is just a next step, something I'd like to work on. I think it can be done in-house. It's going to take some considerable staff time, and it probably won't be done quickly, but something that we could start working on so that we have this available if this is a direction council would like us to take.
Good. So there's two recommendations there. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Caroline, we have two recommendations that deal with them separately, but two motions. The first one is, it is recommended that council direct staff to develop in-house a stormwater management guide for developers to support new development.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Moved and seconded. So I need discussion. So Councillor Cleveland, you had your light on. Was it a comment? No, I was just going to make that motion. Oh, okay. Absolutely. Okay, so moved and seconded. Any more discussion on that one?
Question.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. You want to do that one, Wade?
Sure. You're welcome to.
Oh, if you want to. I can't tell
Well,
you
I
what
want
do.
to. This
I'm
is
not
something
the
that
boss of you.
that is very important. I'm not sure how to word the thing exactly, though. I support the motion, but I don't know how to make the motion.
So the motion is it's just as it's written, recommend that council direct staff to develop a low-impact development implementation plan for town-led public works
Okay,
projects.
yeah. So as it's written.
You had,
Then, yes, I'll make that motion.
And you're good with it as written?
I am.
Good, thank you. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Question, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. That was done. Okay. Stars Road Guided Development Plan. Go ahead.
Okay. So as part of our municipal planning strategy review, we met with stakeholders on in the Stars Road area. And basically what we heard at that time was, we heard a lot about how Stars Road is unattractive. It's the gateway to our town, where it's at the entrance to our highway, where our highways come into town. But generally speaking, businesses in that area didn't want us to regulate them with planning. They wanted to be able to put up the signs they wanted to do. They wanted to have the amount of parking they felt were comfortable with. They'd like to be able to have more storage, not be so far set back from the road. So that's what we heard, and that's what we incorporated into our planning regulations. So we loosened everything up and kind of left it up to those big box stores, who typically have their own policies surrounding those types of that type of development. However, as part of that process, we kind of said there's still more that needs to be done looking at Stars Road as a larger commercial area. So one of the recommendations that came out of that process was that possibly a beautification strategy could work, or that there could be some kind of encouragement for stakeholders to get together themselves and make a plan for the area about how they want to see it move forward, and kind of what pieces the town could play in that, kind of more incentivizing versus regulation. So this has all been kind of in the planning department's mind, that that's something that should happen, but not really sure how to go about it. In speaking with the Chamber of Commerce, they're really interested in kind of leading and getting those right people in the room and talking to them about the future of Stars Road and where they want to go, and if there's anything that the town could do to support those initiatives. So this is to support the chamber while they're doing this, so make sure that they have the right planning information, and that I can kind of give them some guidance about what we might be able to do or look at. And then after they've done the public participation, which we as a town can support them with, we'd like to make some recommendations about how we can move forward with that area and coming up with a vision.
So there are three, again, Jeff and Pam, there are three recommendations. We do them one at a time, or all three at once?
Sorry, Jim, I didn't, so there's two recommendations, but I didn't get into the second one. The other part is that as part of our municipal planning strategy, there's an area of land that we've called commercial holding to the south of Stars Road, and it's owned by private stakeholders. And the intent was to hold that land because it's not serviced until we were ready to open it up for development. And there's a vision there about kind of mixed use, residential, commercial, those kind of things. But if we're going to be talking to the stakeholders in that area, or possibly people who want to locate into our area, there's opportunity to kind of do some consultation around those pieces as well, and what we could do with that commercial holding land. So that's what that second part is.
Three different motions.
You're still on.
So it is recommended that council direct staff to offer a full-day workshop with stakeholders of the Stars Road commercial area with organizational support from our chamber, Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, please, because I'm not comfortable yet.
Caroline, Your Worship, Caroline, could you talk about the Chamber's role in this? Because I know you've had some discussion, engagement.
It's gone back and forth, yes.
So can you clarify that?
So I don't think the chamber will be comfortable with the motion as Jim just made it. So it really is that staff would like to support the chamber, but the chamber really wants to lead this process. So it's not necessarily a partnership as much as we're here to make sure they know what's available within the town. We'll help promote it if they'd like, and be available. Staff will be available to support the process, but they really want totally their branding on this and then to go out and get that, do that consultation.
For information.
So somebody, I need some help with this, respectfully. We know what our rules are. We know the direction we would like to head. And this and I stand corrected, this appears like we're going to hand this over to another agency to engage the public on our planning and land use. No, because I just need you to correct me as soon as I'm off base. And I guess what I'm trying to say is when any of us goes out, any groups go out and ask the public, the first thing I think is how tremendously important it is to understand why we do what we do. So if we had asked the public, yeah, okay, go ahead, CAO. I'm just confused a little bit.
Okay, so generally about roles and responsibilities and mandates. So the town of Yarmouth, you do set the bylaws in place. You do create the strategies, staff support and providing recommendations. What Caroline and her crew are wanting to do is to follow through with some of the directions that the municipal planning strategy envisioned and what the community told her when she and their team were doing the engagement. The Chamber of Commerce, and I'm not a member, I don't think. Town is, so I don't like to speak for them, but I think typically chambers of commerce are more arm's length from government and take more of a advocacy or critical role that you don't see a lot of chamber of commerce municipal partnerships happening. They are a business interest group, and part of their mandate is to, I believe, or appears to be, is to keep the municipal governments to account on the rules and taxes and so on that you put in place. And so what they want to do, it appears in this case, is they want to go talk to their members and their interest group about how they see or what they would like to see in terms of Stars Road beautification improvement. There's nothing wrong with that, because what they'll do is they'll come forward to council and they'll say, here's our vision. You know, they're the ones who during our planning processes, they're the ones who articulated and informed that process to start with. Now the chamber's saying, let us go and work with them to clarify, and that's okay. I think it would be great if Caroline and her staff can be present to hear firsthand and to then help translate that to, okay, how do we within our organization bring that information in and deliver on it, whether it's through financial programs, through land use planning changes, through streetscape improvements. Like, there's a number of ways that we might be able to respond that the chamber's not necessarily going to know, how we work and what we can do, but they can certainly articulate what they want. And if that matches our vision, which it should, then there's just a matter of how do we deliver it. What's their role? What's our role?
So don't turn your light out yet. So just to be clear, that this all takes place, and is it provided as information to council because we may not agree?
Right.
So the chamber has requested that they do the final report of what they hear to council, and then from there I'd like to take what they give us and then make some recommendations moving forward. So I don't think I think the planning is in place. It's lined up the way based on what we heard, but there's opportunity for new programs or policies or other things, and for this group to get together in a room and maybe do some things on their own once they start thinking about it.
I think that's really cool. I think it's great. I guess what I'm just going to say it in plain English. The whole bylaws around why office use is in our downtown, and even if we had 50 groups saying otherwise, we probably would have stuck to that. So I don't want anybody,
Yeah.
you know
So
what I mean?
we've
Like,
had those conversations with the chamber
that's-
about kind of where the directions they could take conversations, where there could be some
Yes.
really positive change.
Okay.
So one of the things the municipal planning strategy talks about is, so one of the things with that office piece is if the reason we want to keep offices located in the downtown is because it generates traffic. It's a primary use that generates traffic, and then the secondary uses in the area, so our retail, our restaurants, they benefit from having that traffic. Which is the same reason the Stars Road organizations and stakeholders would like to have those there. But maybe there's an opportunity to look at a different primary use, such as residential, and how we could infill around in that area to give them a customer base built right in. Or, you know, there's other pieces that we can have those conversations and thinking critically. So that's
You know
kind
what
of
I'm
where
saying?
we're hoping they'll
That
go.
a
Yeah, I think.
report, I guess we need to be clear that a report doesn't mean it's going to happen. But I think we all generally understand that. There's
Yeah.
just,
I've been very clear with the chamber, and
okay.
so it's kind of always been on the back burner for the planning department that we wanted to do further consultation, and it's
Yeah.
not so much about what the town can do, although I think there's more opportunities. It's more about getting those people in the room and getting them excited about the future of
Absolutely.
Stars
Yeah.
Road.
Yeah, we want to do that. We need
and
to do that.
I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm not the person to do that, where the chamber is an organization that has them as members. And they're happy to take the lead on it. I think that having an outside organization bring those people together and have those conversations might be more of an opportunity to make it less about the town and more just about the future of Stars Road and what everyone can do together.
Absolutely.
And the town would be a piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It just, I couldn't wrap my head around it at first. Yeah. Yes, CAO?
Yeah, I'm already on.
You are.
So the other thing that we talked about, this was discussed at the Plan Advisory Committee, and one of the things we discussed is if this is or were to be in fact led by the town, there's a sort of a built-in expectation, perhaps, that we're going to show up with something in our pocket to put on the table, and that at this point is not the case.
Yeah.
And so one of our members who used to have a business on Stars Road kind of cautioned against that, and I think this way forward eliminates that sort of built-in expectation that it's about coming to find out what the town has to offer. This is really
No, they're not
not
thinking
that.
about
This is what is it that they envision on Stars Road as being the best for Stars Road.
Yeah, I see what you-
Love that.
Yeah,
Love that. I
They're never gonna change.
sincerely just didn't understand.
yeah.
So good, okay. So you just mentioned that perhaps maybe that was not the right motion?
Yes, because it talked about partnership, and so, and I know that the chamber's uncomfortable with that terminology for the reasons that Jeff outlined. So my recommendation was that council direct staff to offer support to the Chamber of Commerce in engaging stakeholders of the Stars Road commercial area. So they'll do the process, and we'll just support them as they see fit.
My motion wasn't seconded, was it?
No? Oh, it was?
I didn't think it was seconded.
Yeah, so what do we need to do? Withdraw the motion?
I'll withdraw
Okay.
my motion.
You good, Councillor Barry? Okay, so the next motion, do you want to read that again, Caroline? Are you okay with that?
Recommend to staff to offer support to the Chamber of Commerce in engaging stakeholders of the Stars Road commercial area.
So moved.
I thought that was it. Oh, okay. Question. It's called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Thanks for your patience and trying.
It's okay, it took me a while. This
Yeah.
is like draft 5 of this
Yeah.
because the terminology was very important, so,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, good. So what else do we need? There's 2 more. Do we need this?
Just one more, really. Isn't just the third item?
Yeah, so it was just that if council's interested in having us proceed, having the planning department proceed with looking at recommendations on the future of that commercial holding zone, I'd like to have a recommendation to do that, and it would align nicely with the kind of process that the chamber's going through.
It's a separate motion, Your Worship. I'll make that motion. Recommend the council direct staff to develop a recommendation on the future of their commercial holding CH zone.
Good, Caroline? Is
Yeah.
that okay? Any discussion on that one?
Question.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Subdivision bylaw review?
So the town's subdivision bylaw was prepared in 2005, and it hasn't been reviewed since. As part of our municipal planning strategy review, which was all just done recently, I think that the next step would be to look at our subdivision bylaw and make sure that it aligns with our regulations and our goals that we've outlined within that document. This aligns really well because
Excuse me?
the municipality of the District of Yarmouth is also doing a subdivision bylaw review at this point in time. So what I'd like to do is work with them on some of the public participation associated with this. So I'm thinking developers, surveyors, those kind of people who would be working within both municipalities will need to be engaged as part of this review process. And since they're already doing it themselves, that there's that opportunity to kind of do that public participation together, potentially make sure our language is similar within our documents, and just that wherever we see opportunities to align, we can. So I'm looking to do a review of our subdivision bylaw and ideally to do it collaborating with Modi.
As it stands, I recommend that in spades. But I'll take comments from staff. You know, I'm prepared to make the recommendation, but I don't want to confuse the issue by if I don't get a seconder, I just want, yeah. Yeah. What's your concern, Pam?
No, I'm just wondering if this would, it's just subdivision bylaw, right? Because right now, I don't know how much planning is done outside of the town, because we're just the town. So is this a
Yeah.
step towards?
Yeah, so this is just an opportunity. I kind of outlined in my report. So the province is looking at making planning mandatory for municipalities.
And that's a
Yeah.
beautiful step forward.
That's a big step. And part of that step, which maybe the town could work on and do better, is they want to require that our documents outline how we're going to work with our adjacent municipalities when we're considering planning.
Do you think
That's
maybe they need to implement planning in the others first before they ask? I'm genuinely asking that.
There,
Like, are we?
This is part of it. So when they require when they require that they adopt a municipal planning strategy, they have a list of what needs to be within
Yes.
that document. This is now going to be a requirement within our municipal planning strategies.
Okay,
is that we outline how we're going to work with our neighbors.
and the
That's my question. I know it sounds, I'm
No,
probably phrasing it the wrong way. I just,
they're talking about, also the provincial planning board is talking about district planning, district
yes,
planning.
sorry. Go ahead, CAO. I'm just
Thank
trying
you.
to understand.
So, Your Worship, so the adjacent municipality or the adjacent municipality to us, they do have a municipal planning strategy. They, I believe, are part of a district planning commission. And I stand to be corrected, Caroline, but I believe the new rules that are being implemented provincially might not impact on them, because they already have planning in place. I mean, as far as collaboration, perhaps so, but I believe they have an MPS and an LUB and probably meet what are called the minimum requirements.
So what I've highlighted about saying in your planning documents how you're going to work with the adjacent municipalities, that is going to be one of the minimum requirements.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's new for everybody.
That's
Yeah.
new for everyone. And
So-
so I'm not sure how that, we haven't done a lot of that in the past.
So what this is this is just about when somebody wants to divide land. And when we say subdivision, we think about, cul-de-sacs and residential development, but it is, subdivision bylaw regulates any division or consolidation of lands. And so what Caroline is proposing here is to work with Morris Lloyd, who is now the contract planner for the district, to try to harmonize to the extent possible the two subdivision bylaws.
Yeah, so
That-
my question was, do they have them, or do we have to wait? That's what, I probably phrased it the wrong way.
Oh, I
But-
totally misunderstood the.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
no, they
I-
have those documents.
Yeah,
yes,
because
yeah.
if we're trying to
They
come
just-
together on those things, then we have to make sure both are in place, and the answer is yes.
Yeah, so in speaking with the counselors for Modi, they feel that their wording is, we just reviewed our municipal planning strategy, but it was done within like 5 years ago. So they feel that document is up to date. And now their next step, similar to us, is to look at their subdivision bylaw and review and make sure that it aligns. So just be kind of thinking big picture about what
Yeah.
the province is looking for us to do. This is kind of a small piece that might be really easy because we share developers and surveyors, and they're going to
Absolutely.
give us probably similar feedback, that if we're going to reach out, we could do the public participation together. We can harmonize our language. We can, I assume the approaches would be different when it comes to subdivision for most things, but where there is opportunity to collaborate and do similar techniques, then we'd like
Yeah.
to try that.
Good.
So I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but I think there's opportunity here.
Good.
Yeah.
So that answers my question. See how confused everything gets when I just ask the wrong question? Got my CS. No, I mean, I just,
Question, Your Worship.
okay. Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Taxation adjustment.
Your Worship, no. Go ahead. I was going to make a motion. Yep, you want to talk?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Your Worship, Canada Revenue Agency changed their rules last year, and they'll come into play in 2019, specifically affecting the way councillors' compensation is dealt with. No longer providing you with a partial tax exemption for the expenses that you incur, as consideration for the expenses you incur, nominal expenses over time to execute your duties. And so in removing that exemption, what is happening across the province and is recommended by the NSFM is that there be an adjustment made to your compensation to offset the CRA rules, so that your net pay as councillors remains consistent. And so we need direction of staff in order to carry that out. So I would suggest a motion to direct staff to calculate the adjustments of the net compensation.
That word right there. I got it.
You got it all there?
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you do the wording, but
I'll mess it up now.
that's the background.
Your Worship, I'll make a motion in regards to the NSFM recommendations that town review our compensation calculations and refer to budget. Is that all right? Because I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know what my number is. I don't know what my number is.
Yeah,
That's going to
it-
affect us.
It's not going to have a great effect. Like I say, it's not going to have a great
I'll
effect.
make a motion, I'll
Direct
retract
staff.
that motion, Your Worship, and I'll make a motion, Town of Yarmouth, accept the NSFM recommendation.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Discussion? Questions called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Election decisions. Councillor McLeod?
Your Worship, with the recent passing of Councillor Sandy Dennis, I'm concerned about the possibility that we would have 2 by-elections before the next scheduled elections in 2020. And I've discussed it with our CAO, Jeff, and over a period of time, and so he has crafted, and I have supported the following motion. Just give me a second to get organized here. Whereas we have lost a dear friend and colleague in Councillor Sandy Dennis, and whereas the Municipal Elections Act require a council seat be filled through by-election upon the death of a council member, and whereas Mayor Mood has declared her candidacy for nomination for the upcoming federal election, possibly leading to another council vacancy this year, and whereas the cost associated with running a by-election is in the tens of thousands of dollars, be it resolved that Town Council write to the Minister of Municipal Affairs requesting the postponement of a by-election to replace Councillor Dennis until such time as the fate of Mayor Mood's entry into federal politics is known, ensuring the town will not hold more than 1 by-election within a year and a half of the next municipal general election in October 2020.
Second for discussion, Your
Okay.
Worship. I got a question to the CAO.
Yeah,
So,
'cause I don't-
what happens if worse comes to worse for her worship? What happens if worse comes to worse for her worship? That makes sense. What happens if worse comes to worse?
What happens if she
doesn't-
loses?
What happens if she loses the oh, of course not. What happens if she loses the, well, okay,
What
well,
if I
I'll do
just don't
2
get the
scenarios.
nomination?
What happens if she loses the nomination? Then what do we do? Then do we do a by-election?
Yeah,
So-
you can answer.
So the way the resolution was written is that when the fate of Mayor Mood's entry into federal politics is known, so whether she receives the nomination, whether she is successful in the election, when we know what the outcome is, if she is leaving us or if she's staying with us, we will know at a certain point that we either have to have a by-election to replace her or we don't. And when that is clear, then we would have 1 by-election, replace Councillor Dennis or either replace Councillor Dennis's position and possibly replace Mayor Mood's
Okay.
in the same election. So we will have to run 1 election. But we
Okay.
would like to run 1 election.
So, and we did the timeline, you told me the timeline in the office here a little while ago was, would have been May, would have been end of May, so now we're looking at October, so if she's successful in her bid and wins the election, then we could call it one in probably November or December, right?
Sorry. Oops.
My apologies.
What
I shouldn't-
happens if she wins,
Okay, so
loses?
the way the Election Act, if she
wins the nomination, loses the election?
then her
Are we gonna have
situation,
Are we going to have a
her situation
by-election?
doesn't change. Okay, so if she wins the nomination,
We're looking at 1 by-election.
If I
Right.
went, yeah,
Let me
yeah,
speak
go
to it.
ahead, because
Let me speak
I
to it.
didn't even know this one was
so,
coming.
so the way the act reads is that when a council vacancy occurs, council must meet within 4 weeks and set the date of the election, which can't be more than 11 weeks from that meeting date. Okay, so
From
that's
the 4-week mark?
right. So from the date you meet, sorry, you have to meet within 4 weeks, and from that date, whenever that is, the election has to be held within 11 weeks on a Saturday. So if we proceeded, let's say at the March 14th council meeting, to set the election date, it could be as far away as May 25th. Okay, that's the furthest away you could have that election. Within that time, Councillor Mood, so that is the Councillor Dennis scenario, okay, with no alteration in following the act. If we were successful in having the minister grant us some leave from the requirements of the act for a period of time, so whenever nomination day is, If Mayor Mood does not receive the nomination, then we know her fate, and we would meet within 4 weeks of that date and set the election for no more than 11 weeks from there. If she wins the nomination, then we don't know her fate until election night, which is likely in October. So in that case, October 21st. So we would meet within 4 weeks of that date, set the election date, and if she's successful in the election, we would be having an election for mayor and a council seat within 11 weeks, or we would just be having an election for the council seat. So that's kind of how it all plays out. And so if the minister grants us that reprieve or that leave so that we don't have to incur, I say tens of thousands, depending on how you go with that.
Because it doesn't make any difference if one person, like us, the last election, if one person runs or 18 people runs, it's still going to cost you the same amount of money to run an election.
You have to have a returning officer, you have to print just as many ballots, or you have to engage a company to do the electronic process. There's not much in terms of economies of scale.
That's right.
So I have one final comment, Your Worship. We've operated with 5+1 over the past year or so, and so I'm hoping that Jeff, in discussions with the Municipal Affairs, will maybe talk about operating in the future with a total of 6 people and around the table. And that's just my thought, and haven't really spoken with him in depth about that, but I know the quorum, it changes a little bit. The quorum would still have to be 4, but that's just another thought that's crossed my mind, and thanks, Your Worship.
CAO?
Yeah, just
Wait, Councillor.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. It makes sense as far as it goes, but I guess my big question is this not law? Is it really as simple as talking to him and being granted some kind of a dispensation? Is law not law? How does it work?
Go ahead, CAO.
It's a good question.
Very good.
It's a good question. I've reached out to Municipal Affairs to ask the question if there have been precedents for this sort of thing. My contact initially said there weren't precedents that he was aware of, but it sounded like there was a situation, so we've yet to connect on the phone to really discuss our circumstances. You would think the law is the law is the law, but there are certain areas, I guess, where the minister may have some discretion. Unless we ask the question, we don't know. All right, so it's just about trying to be financially, I guess, a little bit responsible. Our circumstances are what they are, but if we can mitigate the costs to the taxpayer and in the process, I think we should at least ask the question.
Go ahead, Lee.
I'm sorry again. I guess when it comes right down to it then, the motion on the floor, once it's voted on one way or the other, if it's approved, is all contingent on the approval of the minister. So what this is a request as opposed to a definite, I guess. Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor.
And the only thing I'm worried about, Your Worship, if they drag it out for a month or two in the minister's office, you know how government sometimes works in slow and mysterious ways, is they come back in July and say, you got to have a by-election right now. You got to do it. Like if he drags his feet on it. That's, I think times, and some people in the community have made a decision that they would, under what the rules, like Wade said, under the rules and laws that they see, they're expecting a by-election before June the 1st, and some people I know in the community are making arrangements and doing pamphlets and getting some signs and getting organizations to go out and run in a municipal election. And they are working under the rules that are already in place, right? Here's the rules, there's the 11 weeks, and it's going to be before the 1st of June. And people are out there doing that and expecting us to abide by those rules. And if those people are doing it, and let's try to maybe save ourselves some money and do some, you know, kind of not sidestep it, but try to be prudent. There should be some exemptions. This might have to be something that the Department of Municipal Affairs looks at and maybe changes some wording in the MGA. Like, but I know there's several people that are expecting an election before June under the current rules.
I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know which way to go, because it's a tough one. Because we have been doing this for over a year. And
I just one final comment. It's worth a try, and as Phil has pointed out, if they dilly-dally and don't respond, we'll know it more definite, because the nomination day takes place before the end of May, I assume. So I'm hoping that that we can try, and what's wrong with trying to set a precedent? And I know if I was Minister of Municipal Affairs and I had looked at that, and he says, I know how poor municipalities are. Let's try it. Let's set a precedent. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. So we got a motion. Sorry, CAO, go ahead.
Yeah, just on the question of the response and how quickly we could get a response. If we don't get a response or a clear response by March the 14th, which is the next council meeting, I don't think you'll have much. I don't think you'll have much choice at that point. So this is something we'd have to act on right away in order to give the minister the story and give him, you know, a small window to consider, and his response might be, you know, this is a unforeseen circumstance. It's too bad for Yarmouth, but we'll amend going forward.
I would have voted against the motion, but if you put the timeline in, if we don't hear a response from the minister by our next regular scheduled council meeting, then we would have to make that decision to go ahead.
You'll then need a motion to go to a regular full meeting after this meeting.
Yeah. Okay, I agree. Okay, questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
So, Your Worship, in the event that nothing changes and we're moving forward with an election, there will be recommendations March 14th. There is a question, I guess, because at that meeting you'll be setting the nomination day. I will need to begin the process of identifying a returning officer sooner rather than later. There won't be time to wait for March 14th, because nomination day will be very shortly after that. So we'll have some organizing to do. So I've got to begin that work, notwithstanding the fact that there may be a change.
Do you need a motion for that?
No, I'll be bringing forward. All right, enough with the heckling. I'll be bringing forward a recommendation at the March 14th meeting in the absence of any new information from the minister.
Good.
All right, where are we? Election to airport agreement?
Your Worship, there's a fairly long winded request for decision in the package, but I'd like to speak to it equally long-winded, if that's okay with you.
You go right ahead.
Okay.
I'll be right back anyway, but I...
I was hoping you'd stick around.
30 seconds.
So, as council's aware, earlier this week we had a meeting with our municipal partners, the District of Yarmouth and the District of Argyll, to talk about the future of the Yarmouth International Airport and future directions and our next intermunicipal agreement. So the process involved us as council, you as council and with staff, meeting with a consultant. Each council did that independently last week or a couple weeks ago. And then we got together this week to kind of hear what the individual councils' thoughts were about the future and see where the common ground was and see how we would move forward. So let me go through the request for decision, and I'll read the recommendation at the end, okay? So the Yarmouth International Airport was a federally operated airport up until 1997. In 1997, the federal government, through its airport divestiture program, divested the airport. Through this process, the province and all municipal units declined the opportunity to assume responsibility for the airport. A not-for-profit group formed in the community as an offshoot of the Chamber of Commerce called the Yarmouth Airport Commission Association. They received the airport and associated transfer funds to operate the airport. The Yarmouth International Airport Corporation is a municipal corporation formed by the 3 municipal units in Yarmouth County to take over responsibility for the airport from the Airport Commission Association. The Yarmouth Airport Commission Association had reached the realization prior to 2005 that the airport could not continue to operate without government subsidy. As a condition of providing the subsidy, the municipal units negotiated to take ownership of the assets after 10 years of continued operation and subsidy. The YIAC, our municipal corporation, met its obligation and took ownership 4 years ago. Sorry. Between 2005 and today, the 3 municipalities have collectively invested over $8 million in local taxpayers' dollars into keeping the airport operational. Approximately 30%, or $2.4 million of this, came from the town of Yarmouth. The March 31st, 2009 funding level is expected to be $793,479. That would be the end of this current fiscal year or the end of next month. Over the years, some of the funds have been spent on investing in economic development opportunities in aerospace and related industries. The municipalities also supported the operation of 2 passenger air services and have sold a parcel of land which now houses Midland Transport Depot. The agreement underpinning the YIAC, or our municipal corporation, expires March 31st, 2019. The councils of the 3 municipal partners have recently met, as mentioned, for detailed discussions to set the vision for the future of the airport and the basis of future agreements. The airport has had governance issues as well as financial issues. The YIAC board has taken at least 4 different forms, and we have engaged 6 full-time or acting managers over the 15 years. With notable exception of Argyle's CAO Alain Muse, success in bringing costs down, with the exception of his success, in bringing costs down, the results at the airport have been consistently unremarkable. The value of the airport is articulated as being an opportunity for economic growth and a landing place for EHS and search and rescue operations. Despite best efforts, the economic opportunity is not converted to development. The EHS and SAR value is assumed, but not necessarily validated. The SAR helicopter was removed some years ago, and the hangar turned over to the Airport Corporation. EHS utilizes the airport, but there were no inquiries or expressed concern last year when the main runway was closed. It's possible that the airport value is not well understood by all. The discussions on February 27, 2019 were based on the reality of 15 years of operational history and a diminished enthusiasm for local taxpayer investment. There was also an acknowledgement that the current governance framework was insufficient with multiple independent owners and a limited authority and tightly resourced board. It was clear that everyone present wants the airport to continue to operate. Town council representatives present for the discussion put forth an idea to simplify the situation around governance and limit the town involvement going forward. The group assembled was advised by our delegation that we would be recommending to council and to committee of the whole today that we consider our option to withdraw from the Yarmouth International Airport Corporation as of March 31st, 2019, honoring the terms of our current intermunicipal agreement, and that subject to successful negotiation of the withdrawal, the town of Yarmouth consider providing an operating grant equal to our share of their projected deficit of $558,000 for up to 2 years to match the proposed term of their next intermunicipal agreement. The position of the town of Yarmouth is informed by our experience as the sole owner and operator of the International Ferry Terminal since 2018. With one council as the owner, the governance, decision-making, and lines of authority are more clear and efficient than through arm's-length bodies operating with limited authority and resources limited by the lowest common denominator. Council partnerships can take many forms, and one form of partnership is for each of the partners to take responsibility and control of regional assets. This is the case with the Yarmouth International Ferry Terminal. It does depend on the trust and the confidence of the partners to allow one to take responsibility for all. So we're recommending, as I've already said, to consider withdrawing from the YIAC as of March 31st, 2019, honoring the terms of the current intermunicipal agreement, and subject to successful negotiation of the withdrawal, the town consider provide an operational grant equal to our share of their projected deficit, $558,000 for up to 2 years, to match the proposed term of the next intermunicipal agreement. So, Your Worship, I would recommend that, and if there is a motion, I would also have additional comment.
Moved by Deputy, second by Councillor Cleveland. Go ahead, CAO.
So, Your Worship, the motion is clear. It would change our involvement at the table, simplify the governance structure. The terms for withdrawal from the YIAC are clear within the intermunicipal agreement. We've talked to our solicitor about those, and there will be a degree of negotiation. The second part of the motion is contingent upon us successfully negotiating and completing the withdrawal. So there are two pieces to it. We are going to, the intent is to continue to fund the YIAC for 2 years, which is the contemplated term of the next intermunicipal agreement. We don't know, nobody knows what the term after that will be or what it will look like. But this would at least continue to have us supporting our partners in the endeavor, and at the same time allow us to redirect our I would say our staff focus, and perhaps indeed the council focus to the items of regional importance that we have a greater responsibility for, including, as I mentioned, the ferry terminal.
Thank you, CAO. Deputy?
Yeah, that's the one I wanted to touch on, Jeff, was the ferry terminal. So we are 100% owners of the terminal. And the other two municipal units, Argyle contributed a percentage, and the municipality of Yarmouth contributed a percentage. And like you said, continuing for the next 2 years, we'll be contributing to the deficit financing of the airport corporation. And in addition to that, it doesn't prevent the reformation of the airport corporation, whatever form it is. If one or both of those municipal units take it over, for that corporation or that entity to come back to the town of Yarmouth for any capital improvements or any other things that they might see benefiting the airport itself. That doesn't preclude those guys from doing that.
I'm gonna let the CAO. I'll have all the lights on, but go ahead, CAO.
So the YIAC will continue to exist as a municipal corporation, and as such, they are eligible to come forward and apply for grants. So we can still engage with them financially. We would not engage with them at the governance level.
That's right.
During the term of this next agreement. You know, we don't know the future in its entirety, but the intent here is not to in any way financially impact the airport. The airport, we all recognize the value in its operation and want it to continue to operate. That was said. We simply want to make it as efficient as possible and allow us to focus our resources. As you alluded to, we have a $9 million capital reinvestment plan over the next couple of years at the ferry terminal. All of our senior staff, most of our senior staff are engaged in that process. It's a big complicated project. And, you know, the airport is another big complicated situation. By us stepping back from one and taking full responsibility for the other, I think it's a better use of our resources and everybody's resources. And just to I guess put a finer point on it, you know, the process of getting the next agreement in place is not complete. The process of setting the vision has taken meetings of each council, a meeting of councils together. We've involved a consultant and quite a bit of CAO time to get there. It is not an efficient governance model, and by simplifying it, hopefully it becomes more simplified. We don't know if one or two municipalities will continue to go forward with it, but it will be simpler than three.
And to refresh my memory, and maybe for the viewing audience, Jeff, can you remind me when it was turned over from the federal government, when it was divested, and the opportunities for the provincial government to take over the facility, and what they did when they had the opportunity to take over the airport itself, and the next group that it was divested to. I think that probably is a very important piece of the conversation, and probably the lack of some provincial support for the facility.
CAO? Got a whole bunch of questions.
So, Your Worship, in 1997, the airport was divested, and the way federal divestiture occurs, the protocol is that first the assets are considered within the federal government. If no federal government agency wants those assets, then they then go to the provincial government. So the province of Nova Scotia would have had a chance back in 1997 to take over the airport. They obviously declined, because the next step is it comes to the municipal units. I wasn't involved here at the time, but I'm aware that the municipalities all declined to take over the airport, and that's when the Chamber of Commerce, a not-for-profit sector, is next. The Chamber of Commerce, a group of business people, stepped forward within the chamber and negotiated a letter of intent to receive the airport. They formed the Yarmouth Airport Commission Association as an offshoot of the chamber, with its own board of directors and its own mandate, and they received the airport property. So at that time, neither municipal nor provincial government saw fit to step forward and take it over. The YACA, the society, ran out of money. You know, it's an expensive operation. They ran out of money, or were running out of money. They needed municipal support, and that's where we negotiated the takeover of the assets. If the town and municipalities were going to be putting in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, we wanted to at least have control of the physical assets at the end of the day. That was agreed to, with the caveat that we had to operate the airport as the same class and configuration for 10 years. We met that obligation 4 years ago. Since then, we've operated under a different intermunicipal agreement, you know, continuing on as three partners. Over that time, now almost 15 years of, actually over 15 years of municipal involvement, because we were involved with the YACA for a couple of years before it became the YIAC, if that's not confusing enough. So the provincial government at times have been supportive of the airport. One year we received a grant of about $100,000 for general operations, no strings attached. We have received financial support, I believe, for specific studies or investigations along the lines of economic development. We did receive a significant pot of money, $2 million at one time, to assist with the initiation of an airline service. That didn't go so well. The airline was out of business within a year. And so one of the learnings from that, and it is a truth today, is that it's a truth today, and it's always been a truth, frankly, is that it has never been financially viable to operate a passenger air service out of Yarmouth. Air Canada was always subsidized. You know, the 4 attempts, that have been made since have all been subsidized. There is no model for passenger service that won't require significant subsidy. And since deregulation of the air industry, there's no requirement for a passenger service to service our airport. So that ship has sailed. We wish it was otherwise, but we unfortunately, funding the wish is very expensive and complicated, and that infrastructure is getting older. So the reality is that there needs to be some new thinking at the airport and a nimbler organization, and this is intended to assist that.
Okay, so you'll have to help me with the lights here. Councillor Cleveland, please.
I'll be short because really everything's been said, but I just want to reiterate the fact that this is not a particularly easy decision. A lot of people equate the airport with a certain hope, a hope for, I don't know, perhaps economic prosperity. And I think we've all long mulled over this one. We have done consultation. We've worked very hard on this. Spent a whole day yesterday working on this as well. But we've all looked over this over and over and over again. Do we need an airport? Yes. But ultimately, what we need is to redirect. We are on our own when it comes to the ferry terminal, when it comes to the management of it. And there's a lot of big things that need to be done there. There's a lot of big things that need to be done anywhere. I just want to reiterate the fact that it's not that we're turning our back in any way, shape, or form. It's just time for us to concentrate on that and allow someone else to concentrate on the airport. Thank you.
Okay.
Your Worship, Wednesday was a very emotional day, especially in the afternoon. So I'm obviously supportive. Jeff, on the bottom of page 2, under desired outcomes, you recommended to Council Town of Yarmouth withdraw from the YAIC. It should be YIAC, and further down, Jeff, under organizational, the governance of the YIAC.
Yes, thank you.
I didn't want. I figured you'd catch it later, or Lindsay would catch it, but I just wanted to ensure that. Your Worship, if it's appropriate, I'll call for a question on the motion.
Yeah, it is. I just want to say this as well. Thank you, CAO, for the explanation. It's very well thought out. This is not a negative in my book. This is simply making it easier for governance to take place. Everybody understands how important the airport is. We continue to believe that, but I would say a couple things, that because we do trust and have confidence in our partners, that this is a good way to go to make things simpler for decisions to happen. The only thing I would add is that can't vote or not vote until I say how tremendously helpful the CAO for Argyle, Alain Muse, has been as the interim manager. He's done some amazing work. It's been hours upon hours upon hours of his time put in to get us to where we are, and that makes it a little bit easier as well. So okay, so we're good.
Question?
Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, folks. Library funding model.
Your worship, thank you. Lindsay passed that around. As you can see, they had a new funding model. The province and Albans came up with some input from Albans Library Boards Association of Nova Scotia. And for 2020, they still have some concerns, but you can see the town of Yarmouth will be going from $44,478 to $56,660, which is an overall change to the Western Counties Regional Library of an increase of $110,000. And they're all, I think these are all done on population. There's one question, Jeff and Jerry, is how they grant for French services. Is the province gives the Western County Regional Library $100,000 for French services, and they put that, they took that out of a separate pile and put it into the calculation. So the Library Board Association of Nova Scotia and actually some of the other municipal partners are going to try to reverse that, so those numbers could be a little less. And so that's just for information right now. And actually the government, under this new, if this does go through under this new proposal, the government's percentage for increase is only 18%, while the average for municipal units across the province is 29% increase. And we are at, ours is at 27. You'll see like Digby goes up to 42%. Municipality of Yarmouth, District of Yarmouth goes from 65, I think they're the largest contributor, to 86,000. So that's for information, and they're in contact with the province right now and Culture and Heritage to talk about the French numbers on that side and maybe a recalculation. So that'll be coming in effect 2020.
This will?
Yeah,
Number?
yeah. So there's
So
still.
it's not a would you like to contribute, it's
No,
yes or no?
it's, yeah, but they're still in talks with the minister and that department.
Good, thank you. Any questions for? Request for decision Saltscapes event proposal. Hello, Natalie. You're on.
I'd just like to present the request for decision for program funding for Saltscapes and Select Nova Scotia's event this coming June. Saltscape has approached the town to support a project that reflects a collective interest in creating more mass town event models in Sydney and Yarmouth, and wrapping those three events together, unifying each area with region-specific public and private key influencers to create a new and much-needed sustained vitality for Southwest Nova and Cape Breton. It will also keep our agri-food and small business producers motivated to build a larger economic footprint in Nova Scotia. The Yarmouth event is planned for June 8th and 9th. The event on the waterfront, specifically it will be on the ferry terminal property, will be a combined building and tented venue with more than 25,000 square feet of usable space next to the marina area. It also offers a high-profile signage, branding opportunity for Select Nova Scotia and other partners. To add to this, they have been in contact with Bay Ferries, with Yarmouth CBSA, and other YASTA and other partners, and they've gotten their approval to use the site and that it would not interfere with daily operations. The proposal conditions, and I have provided you in the attachment with the RFD, the full proposal for your review. But there were just a couple of conditions that they are requesting in the proposal. One is to provide at no cost decor assets, picnic tables, the use of the ferry terminal property and adjacent dock area to be used as the event site. 2, Saltscape reserves the right to approve the placement of the Yarmouth decor assets to ensure an effective and engaging traffic flow throughout the venue. And 3rd, that the town of Yarmouth agrees to contribute $5,000 in support of their programming no later than May 1st of 2019. So there's quite an extensive list of what we would receive for that programming contribution of $5,000, and it's detailed in the proposal.
Your worship, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation for $5,000 for the Saltscapes project. Jeff, maybe, we had discussion.
You want to put your light on?
Yeah, for a moment, just for a second.
Thank you,
Natalie.
Deputy.
And the boat start, when does the boat start?
June
Middle-
14th.
Okay, so we're good to go. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the boat will be
Yeah.
in Yarmouth, but they're actually working out events so that at the same time, people, you know how they do the tourism day?
Yeah.
So that would be all coordinated together.
Yeah, good. And how many people do we expect?
I think their target is in excess of 10,000
Good.
people. They're promoting it at the Saltscapes event in April, and they're doing a mass communication strategy. The town will also, with this contribution, get a full page and a half page ad in the Saltscapes magazine. So we'll be very prominent in the promotion of the event around the province.
Okay, and how many other municipal units were asked?
I don't think any other municipal units, this is, unless you can correct me.
No, I
Your
can't
worship.
correct you, but we may, yeah, I can't correct that. I only know that the town's been asked, but this is huge.
Yeah.
They are getting private contribution from other sponsors, so we would be considered as a sponsor of the event.
Good.
One of the co-sponsors
Yep.
of the event.
And then the plan is for this to become, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting to press buttons today.
Go ahead.
The plan is for this to become an annual event and happen on either side of the province. Of course, Saltscapes, there's always a Saltscapes event in Halifax, but now there'll be one in Sydney and one in Yarmouth.
So wait, maybe next year, it might not be in Yarmouth, but it could be in Shelburne, it could be in Digby, it could be somewhere else.
Not that I
No,
know
it'll be
of.
here.
No,
It'll be
it'll always
here.
be here.
Okay,
That's the plan anyways, as far as I know.
good.
That's what I understand as well. As long as they understand that even though it's being held in the town, it's a regional
Yes.
event,
Yes.
which means
Let's get it going
different
with the
things.
first
So
year.
let's get her going.
Get
Yeah.
it going with the first year, and let the other municipal units see the advantage of supporting it in the future.
Perfect.
Question?
Okay. So did somebody make the motion? You made it? I was talking to Don. Okay, second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, municipal cost sharing. CAO?
Your worship, I have a little presentation on that one if we have time.
Well, I don't know if everyone has time, but yes, I'm in.
How about well,
And I'm already late.
Okay, so we've got a,
Meetings, how about that?
Maybe, Your
okay.
worship, maybe we can bump it around. I know Council Cleveland has a motion about the communities in bloom cleanup, and maybe we could score these who you want to see, maybe then get maybe the top 10 or something.
how much time do you have?
I can make time.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, but Don, you're, I know that, but that's why we just need to make sure there's 4 people here to make decisions. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's deal with the decisions first.
You're on at 1 today.
Okay.
That's the only one.
Okay.
Sean can cover for me, obviously.
Well, yeah, you said you missed the buttons today.
Okay, so we're gonna go to 10A, recreation seat. And the question is simply, where are we on this? Because, go ahead.
Maybe to the CAO, Your Worship, we have a vacancy on our Yarmouth Recreation, and what's the process for that? Jeff? And it's a town representative.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, typically, we put out an ad and we seek nominations or seek interest.
Make a motion that Town of Yarmouth put an ad for the vacant seat on Yarmouth Recreation.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, that's fine. Are there other vacancies?
Yes. So we'll all go in the same ad.
All in the
Yes.
same,
Okay.
PAC
Good.
is one.
I'm good with that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Communities in Bloom, you're on there, Counselor?
Okay, coincidentally, the first part of it was there's a vacancy in CIB, so that will be part of that. The second part is this. As you all know, we're hosting a national symposium coming up in September. As you also all know, there is an ongoing, and this is with everyone, it's not just Yarmouth or the Yarmouth area, there's always issues with littering and mess. We're trying to put our best foot forward, and I've always kind of personally felt that communities in bloom, in and of itself, should be a little more predominant when it comes to those kind of things, as well as the other things we're doing, and we really do need to do that in association with WasteCheck. So we started a conversation about doing a cleanup this year, not only during the Earth Day section. Every year there's an Adopt a Block program. It happens right around Earth Day, which is late April. This year we would like to make a motion and to have that happen again in early September because of this event. But my suggestion, and it was finally, not finally, it sounds like that was a fight, it was agreed with at CIB as well, is that perhaps we could make this an annual event, that we do Adopt a Block, kind of make it a lot louder as far as encouraging people to go out and clean up, and do it twice a year. Once in the spring. The spring one's always a cold time to be out, and once in September when the weather, let's be honest, is pretty perfect. And we'll aim for it right around just after school gets in, and perhaps work on engaging NSCC, the high school, all of those groups as well, and have a big Adopt a Block that will happen twice a year here in Yarmouth. So I'm looking for a motion, or perhaps I can make that motion myself. It will be at zero cost to us as a town. WasteCheck will support us, and all we'd be looking for is your official support. So if I could make that motion that we now adopt a block twice a year, once in April, and I can't give you exact dates, and once in September, right after school goes in.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Carried. We're at grants, but what else should we go to before that, just to make sure everything's covered? We good? You good, Don? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at the grants list. And so the question is basically, oh, sorry, CAO, go ahead. The question is basically, who do we want to have come in?
That's all I
Right.
wanted to say.
Yeah,
Do you think maybe, Your Worship,
go ahead.
maybe every counselor maybe might pick out, because there's some here that are like the golf scramble fundraiser, I think that's like $300, and the carpetbaggers might be $200, but Councillor Cleveland had a really good point here a couple of meetings ago about dividing up the money for what is actual tourism. So you see that we have a Bantamay Provincial Championship, which is a one-off coming to Yarmouth, compared to, I'm just going to say something like, and I'm not going to pick them out, like the Firefighters Museum that comes every year,
Yes.
right? So there is I like the tourism component of it. Like we have the Scotia Sportsmen Association every year. They've been doing some good work lately with some, getting some women involved in shooting, and they've been using their facility for some other community events. But do you think we pick maybe what we think are the 10 or 15 events? Is Lindsay, we got those on the amounts on the computer there to, yeah. Yeah. So maybe if we went back, somebody picked it, and then they did the top 10 that were the top 10, I don't know.
Go ahead.
Your worship, how about we, if I could make a suggestion, why doesn't, now that the applications are available, if councillors take over the next 2 weeks to review the applications and submit to Lindsay, let's say, Monday, March 11th, any organizations, let's not set a number, like any organizations that you feel you want to have a presentation from in order to gather a better understanding of what their intentions are and so on. Each councillor submits their list independently. We'll come to the meeting on the 14th and we'll finalize the list and then we'll proceed with the invitation.
I think that works for me too. I just want to make sure that when we look at the applications, that we are considering the same things. So, you know, do you still have money in the bank? I think that was one of them. Or do you have surplus? Have you tapped into other resources? Yep. That's very important. So yeah, okay, good with that.
Do we need a motion for that, Jeff, or?
Yeah, just so we got it.
Yeah,
Make a
please.
motion that we submit our list by March 11th for presentations from the grant organizations.
Okay. Somebody second that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so you're doing that municipal cost sharing now? Okay? Absolutely, I'm good. Everybody else good?
Yeah. I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about
Jim?
him.
What about the buildings, Knights of Columbus, Lions Club? They're not all here.
See the Lions, the Knights of Columbus?
Don't think they're all
I see
here.
the Lions Club's there, but I didn't see the Knights of Columbus.
Yeah, it just, is that,
Well,
that's,
they need to,
that we write,
they get, yeah, if they get taxes,
Some
do they get
aren't.
a grant as well?
yeah, some are, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you, I don't, right, but I guess that's up to, okay, so do you need to be at that table and I'll give you the floor? Speak, you know how it works. Okay, the only thing is, I would love it if this were, can I just press this down thing so we can see that?
Your worship,
What? Oh,
I've made
God.
a small mistake.
You did?
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
I have the wrong presentation.
Mm-hmm.
If you would grant me about 5 or 3 minutes.
Let's take a 5-minute break.
Wait, good be good.
Yeah, I gotta, if Wade's not, is this a decision-making?
Nope.
No? So if Wade needs to leave, that's okay.
Will you have a copy of this that you can send?
I will have a copy.
It won't be as impressive as when you make the.
Well,
Because I get
for
so
sure.
involved with the way you speak.
Okay, all right, let's go.
Sorry.
Yeah. Wait a second. So do we need 5 minutes?
I want to check the one that I have online. I may be able to access that.
Okay.
And
Try that.
make sure that's the right one.
And the only other thing is I can either see you or I can see the screen. It's what? No, I just can't, yeah, because every time I put a computer in front of me, it breaks. Okay, 2 minutes. I'm just gonna go grab another coffee. Lindsay, do you need another cookie?